When it comes to rumors and gossip, every instinct we have is wrong.
Can you provide the distinction again between being teased and being bullied?
These are strategies that you can teach anyone, whether they're neurodivergent or not. Every kid could benefit from learning these strategies. It's very, very rare that you find like a lazy kid who's just refusing to go to school. It's more often, it's masking something much deeper. One of the jobs that we have as adults, as parents, as educators, is to prepare kids to take care of themselves when we're not there. And this is one way that parents can do that.
One of my goals as a former educator was to help my students have a lifelong love of learning. And it was heartbreaking to watch my son hate going to school and hate learning new things. Most mornings, Bradley really struggled to get to school. There was a lot of anxiety, a lot of worry, and really the only reason he would go to school is to see his friends. He hated the idea of having to go and face another day and work as hard as he was working and just to get the C- in a class. We knew when he was very young that he was a different kid. He was wild and loved to run, and what we didn't know then is that he had ADHD. At a glance, he looks like a typical student. He would get overwhelmed and he'd put his head down on his desk and just shut down. So if the teachers didn't know his story, they would assume he was lazy and shut off. That evolved into more and more depression, where he just could not see himself going and participating, going and doing what he needed to do at all. He would stay home from school oftentimes about once a week. It's heartbreaking to watch your child go through struggles and watch them just completely shut down.
When students stop showing up, whether emotionally or physically, it's rarely about laziness. School avoidance is often rooted in anxiety, depression, or past experiences that make school feel overwhelming, unsafe, or simply too much to face. In this episode of Learning Differently, we're joined by Dr. Liz Laugeson to explore what school avoidance really looks like, how it's different from defiance, and why it's so often misunderstood. We'll talk about the quiet signs that a student is struggling, how traditional responses can unintentionally deepen the disconnect, and what helps students re-engage with learning and with themselves. Whether you're a parent trying to understand your child's withdrawal or an educator navigating complex emotions in the classroom, this episode offers empathy, clarity, and real tools for supporting students on their way back. Dr. Liz Laugeson is a clinical professor at UCLA and the founder of the UCLA Peers Clinic, a leading social skills program for teens and young adults with autism. She's an internationally recognized expert in evidence-based social interventions and the author of The Science of Making Friends. Her work has helped neurodiverse students build meaningful connections and thrive socially. Dr. Laugeson, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me.
What are some of the biggest reasons that students are avoiding school today?
There's so many potential reasons. A lot of people go straight to like anxiety and depression. You hear that a lot. And that is true for some kids. And especially there's different types of anxiety. It could be separation anxiety. It could be performance anxiety, being afraid to be called on by the teacher. It could be social anxiety. That's a big one. And of course, depression. But there's a lot of reasons why. They're often fear-based. There's usually some kind of distress associated with going to school. And I would say that one of the more common reasons why a lot of kids don't go to school, they start to refuse to go, is bullying. A lot of people don't realize that, but the research suggests that anywhere from 1 to 3 or 1 out of 2 kids are avoiding school because of bullying. And if it happens suddenly, like all of a sudden your kid is just out of nowhere refusing to go to school, it goes all the way up to about 70% of those cases involve some kind of bullying dynamic.
Having so many different reasons why a child might stop wanting to go to school or avoiding school. As a parent, how should I start approaching this problem or this challenge? What are the things that I should be asking myself and also investigating with my child?
Yeah, I think a lot of parents feel that pressure to get their kid to school, right? Whether they have to rip the sheets off the bed and get them to the car or whatever they have to do, they feel that pressure to get them there. But really, rather than trying to correct the behavior immediately, I think we need to first start with connecting with our kids and figure out what's going on. There's a reason, there's a cause for this. And if we force them to go to school without knowing the cause, we may actually be making it worse, not better. We might be exacerbating this problem, increasing anxiety, increasing depression, making the school refusal worse. So I think starting with conversations that include a lot of empathy and compassion. Again, a lot of the school avoidance is driven by distress. There's something that's overwhelming, maybe overstimulating, something that's fearful in the school setting. And because we know that, we need to start from a place of understanding and trying to have that conversation, build that trust with your child, that you understand that they're not being oppositional or defiant. They're in pain of some sort. Let's understand that so that we can help them.
Can we model that for a moment too? Because I think building empathy is so important. I want for our families who are listening to walk away with very tangible tools to start those conversations with their child. So what might that sound like? Can we, role play a little bit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, obviously the child is going to begin with saying they don't want to go to school, right? And so rather than getting into an argument and saying you've got to go to school, this is not an option, really mirroring back what they're saying. That's empathy, right? So repeat what they said. If you want to keep it really simple for yourself, repeat what they're saying to you so that they feel heard. Because your kid's not going to trust you to tell you what's going on if they don't feel heard, if they don't feel understood. Have you ever been in an argument with someone and you keep talking about the same thing over and over, trying to tell them where you're coming from? It's because you don't feel heard, right? And those conversations are no different with our kids. When they keep telling you something and they're not able to get to this next step, they don't feel heard by you. So let them be heard. Repeat back to them what you're hearing that they're saying and ask questions. Don't assume that you understand what's going on internally with them, because this is all very internal, what's happening. It might be precipitated by things that are very external, like things like bullying, like we talked about, or performance anxiety being called on by the teacher. But ultimately, this is a very internal experience for that child. And so we need to try to enter that world. But you do that cautiously and carefully with compassion.
Are there any questions other than what is wrong, or how are you, or some of those things that maybe don't get to the root cause? What are some other questions that we could utilize?
I would definitely avoid terms like wrong or right, because that kind of places a little bit of a judgment on it. And said, what's going on? I've noticed that lately you don't want to go to school. You got a lot of stomach aches in the morning. You've been getting a lot of headaches. And we went to the doctor and it doesn't seem like there's anything going on there. But I notice this happens right when we get ready to go to school. Have you noticed that too? Remember last year that wasn't happening. Is there something else going on in school this year that's a little different? What's it like during the day? Having those conversations over the dinner table, finding out how the day's gone. What's school like? Who are they hanging out with? What do they enjoy? Those conversations should have been happening before. But if they're not, no place like the present, right? That's the time to do it. But questions, and not with a judgment, but with a real desire to explore with them, try to collaborate with them on figuring this out. Because chances are most kids can't tell you exactly why they're refusing to go to school. It's complicated and it's not always just one thing. They just know they don't want to be there. And, with enough discussion and exploration, I think you can get to the bottom of it. But it's going to take a lot of sensitivity and patience.
I believe you said the stat was 75% of students are avoiding school because of bullying?
When it comes out of nowhere, those times where kids were just doing fine and all of a sudden they're refusing to go to school, the research is suggesting that upwards of about 70% of those cases, there's a bullying dynamic.
So 70%, 70% is profound when it comes to bullying. I mean, I think that when we're discussing this topic of school avoidance, that is a symptom. So let's dive a little bit deeper into bullying. Tell us a little bit more. What's going on?
I think a lot of people, when they talk about bullying, they kind of lump that behavior into like a lot of different things. There's actually 4 very distinct types of bullying, according to research. There's verbal bullying, which would be like name calling, teasing. It's kind of the most common form of bullying. There's physical bullying, right? That's more physically aggressive. It could be pranking people, though, or playing practical jokes, but it's different than verbal bullying. Then there's cyberbullying, which we've all heard of, right? That's all happening sort of online over social media. And then there's also what's called relational bullying. Now, relational bullying is kind of a social bullying. It's sort of like rumors and gossip, kind of that mean girls sort of thing that you hear about. Those are 4 very different types of behaviors. Would you imagine that the strategies that we need to combat those are going to be pretty different? Yeah, they're completely different. So if we're talking about bullying, the very first strategy for figuring out how to handle it is to define it, figure out what it is.
And what is the first step that a parent might take to do that?
Yeah, well, having the conversation is the first step. A lot of kids don't want to tell their parents that they're being bullied. Can you imagine why? What do you think they are afraid of if they tell their parent that they're being bullied?
That my mom is going to march through those doors and talk to school administrators.
That's right. Right. And that doesn't always solve the problem. If it did, kids would probably be doing that, right? But what ends up happening a lot of times is that it's sort of like one kid's word against another, and it puts the school in a difficult position. And then you have this whole conference with the other parent and the other family. It creates a lot of drama. There's a lot of gossip around that too. So it creates a whole new level of,
you have the friend squads and everyone is, yes.
Exactly. And it doesn't usually solve the problem. And so it's an option. It's always an option, but there's also other options too. And so the reason I mention this is that a lot of times parents won't know that their kids are being bullied because the kid's afraid that the parent's going to get involved. But the reality is that at least every kid gets teased. You find one person on this planet that has never been teased and they're lying to you, right? Like everybody's been teased. It's how you react to it that determines how significantly, how chronically, how severely that you're teased. And it is a form of bullying. So I think we need to normalize the fact that people get teased and bullied. We have to talk about that with our kids, expect that these things will happen, and give them some strategies for how to handle it. Maybe even share personal disclosures of your own about times where you were teased or maybe bullied and how that felt for you, but this worked and this maybe didn't, and really opening up a dialogue and normalizing this.
So what are some strategies when it comes to teasing? Because growing up as a cisgender male, I mean, teasing was just part of growing up, and it was about testing the tolerance of, can this guy take it?
Yeah.
Okay, if he can, then he's one of us.
Yeah. That's I like to call that banter.
Okay.
Right? Banter is playful teasing among friends, right? And guys do it a lot. It's very common. Women and girls too, but that's very common. That's a little different. And there's strategies for handling that too. But teasing is a different level. It's actually it's intended to be hurtful. And people tease for lots of reasons. It's really helpful to get into the mind of the teaser. What do you think the teaser wants you to do when they tease you?
Oh, I would say back down.
They want you to back down. It's a control thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or even look for a reaction because they're entertained by it.
Exactly. They want some kind of reaction. They want to make you mad or upset, even cry. And it feels like they're kind of controlling you, like, watch like what I can see, get them to do, or something like that. So we don't want to do what the teaser wants. We don't want to give the reaction that they're looking for. We can't show we're upset or mad, even if we are, because that reinforces that behavior. It makes it fun for them, and it makes it more likely you're going to be teased. So instead, we want to give them a strategy that's going to work. Now, before I get to this strategy, not to keep you hanging here, but I also want to dispel some myths. You guys are myth busters, right? What do you think that most kids are told to do in response to teasing?
Walk away.
Yep. Walk away. What else?
Tell a teacher.
Tell a teacher. Yep. There's one more.
Stand up for yourself.
Maybe tease back. Yeah.
Tease back.
And also ignore it. You heard that one too, right? Okay. So think about that. Imagine that Mike is teasing me. I'm sure you would never do that, but imagine Mike is teasing me.
Mike is a kind soul.
Maybe some banter, but let's imagine though that Mike was teasing me and I ignore him. What will he do?
elevate, right?
Yeah, keep teasing me, right? I just made it easy for you, right? What if I walk away? What will Mike do? He's going to follow me. Yeah.
Follow or assume that you didn't hear, and I'll just say it louder for a bigger audience.
Exactly, right? But so it's not going to make that go away. And if I go tell someone, right? Like I would tell Lynna, what now? What do you want to do?
Well, snitches get stitches, so.
Yeah. So now you want to retaliate in some way. And also now I'm getting a bad reputation for being a snitch. So those are not helpful strategies. And believe it or not, pretty much every kid across the globe is told to do those things. I to trainings all over the world. I always ask this question: what are you told to do? Ignore, walk away, tell an adult. Now, you also mentioned teasing back. So what happens if I tease Mike back? What's he going to do?
Just keep elevating.
Yeah, it's upping the ante, right? That's fun for him.
Right.
None of those strategies work. So we've done research on this to see, well, what do socially successful kids do to handle teasing? And it's none of those things. It's actually probably the simplest strategy we teach in our program. They just simply give a short comeback that shows that what the person said didn't bother them. And actually what they said was kind of stupid, right? So they'll say things like, whatever, or yeah, or am I supposed to care? Is that supposed to be funny? So what? Big deal. They'll roll their eyes, they'll shrug their shoulders. And it gives the impression that what that person said didn't bother them. And that's not fun for them. And in fact, in this situation, Mike might even be a little bit embarrassed because I acted like what he said wasn't funny. It was kind of stupid. That's how you respond to things like bullying and teasing. And so we need to equip our kids. We need to prepare them that these things are going to happen. It's normal. It's not nice, but it's pretty normal. And those strategies work with banter too, because the risk with that banter you were talking about that guys do sometimes, it's always upping the ante. And then at some point, someone gets mad or, someone gets hurt. Yeah. And so you can still say whatever to your friend, right? And it still works. So what I would love to see more of is parents and teachers equipping our kids with these strategies so that we can avoid these negative outcomes like school refusal and, avoiding going to school because they're fearful of what's going to happen when they get there.
So arm us up with some more tools. So the first type of bullying was the teasing type. What was the second one?
So there's physical bullying too. Now here, this is what gets complicated. This is one of the reasons, again, why you have to define the bullying. Because sometimes kids who get physical, that's like the aggressive stuff, hitting, kicking, pushing. Sometimes they tease with words too. And that's where it gets a little confusing. So imagine, again, Mike, we know you wouldn't do this, but imagine that Mike is a physical bully, gets a little aggressive sometimes. And he's teasing me also. And I'm like, whatever. And Mike's embarrassed. Well, what does a physical bully do when they get embarrassed?
They engage.
Yes, they do. So you do not use those strategies, those verbal comebacks with anyone who's a physical bully. That's off the table because that's actually going to antagonize them. It's going to actually... Yes. So instead, you want to do things like avoid that bully, right? Plan your route in school. If you know the bully has a locker in a certain hallway or hangs out in a certain area of school at a certain time, you're finding another route if you can, right? If you can't avoid them, lay low when they're around. Don't draw a lot of attention to yourself. Probably one of the strongest tactics is to hang out with other people. So think about this. Who do bullies want to pick on? The person who's alone or in a group? Alone, right? And why do they want to pick on the person who's alone?
They're easy targets, right?
Easy target. Nobody's there to defend them, stick up for them. No one's got their back. So they pick on the kids who's alone. If you don't want to be bullied, you walk to class with people. You sit with people at lunch. You walk home with people, or you sit next to someone on the school bus. You don't, you have to plan your day this way. You obviously can also get help from supportive adults. This is always an option, especially if a kid is in danger or anything like that. But the thing is, if I'm walking down the hall and someone trips me in the hall and I go flying with my books and the whole thing, and I go immediately tell an adult, what do you think is going to happen? Not much.
Right.
Not much, right? It's my word against theirs. They could just say I was an accident, right? But I tried to get that kid in trouble. Now what do they want to do?
Retaliate.
They want to retaliate. So we want to make sure that we give our kids more than just the one strategy. Yes, you can always talk to a supportive adult, and you should, especially if these other strategies aren't working or if you're in danger. But we can also teach them other strategies. One of the jobs that we have as adults, as parents, as educators, is to prepare kids to take care of themselves when we're not there. Yeah. And this is one way that parents can do that.
Can you go back really quickly, because bullying is such an important topic, especially when we see so many students at Fusion that have been bullied come to us for what we would say safe harbor, right? A nurturing environment. Can you provide the distinction again between being teased and being bullied?
Bullying is sort of like the umbrella term, right? And then there's types of bullying. So far we've talked about the verbal bullying, that's the teasing, and the physical bullying. Those are more direct forms of bullying. They're happening right there, right in front of you. There's also the indirect bullying. That's still bullying, but cyberbullying, right? So someone's posting things about you on their social media. They're sending you harassing text messages. That's cyberbullying. And then there's the relational or the social bullying. That's the whole rumors and gossip, right? That's behind your back. And those are all very different behaviors again. So once again, we got to equip our kids. Like, what are you going to do in those situations?
All right. Now I'm just curious, Doc. What do we do with cyberbullying? I mean, is there a time when we should go straight to the administration and be like, hey, check out what's going on in this feed right here?
I mean, it's always an option, right? I mean, that's one of the more common places that kids will get bullied is in the school setting among classmates. And so schools do have to get involved very often. But, you have to decide when it's time to escalate that. If someone's just sending me some, rude text messages and embarrassing, what's the payoff here if I go tell on them? Is it going to create more drama? Is it going to create more bullying? Is it worth it? That's the conversation that parents should be having with their kids about when do parents get involved? Really well-intentioned parents will sometimes get on their kids' social media, right? You know where I'm going with this, right? And start telling off the kid who's bullying their kid. And now the parent's in trouble, right? Because they're like harassing a child. So I know parents want to protect their kids.
I may or may not have had those tendencies with some
Mama bear
on my 4-year-old,
right? Mama bear. That's not a joke. That's a real thing. But again, if your job as a parent is to prepare your child to take care of themselves when you're not there, and I know you're not thinking about that with your 4-year-old.
Yeah, right.
But at some point, that is the job, right? So it's helping them to help themselves and empower them. So for cyberbullying, it's things like, believe it or not, there's a saying actually online that gets at this. Have you ever heard "don't feed the trolls"? Have you heard that saying before? It's been around for like 20 years. It's a really good strategy. So what that means is don't react. It's the opposite of what I was talking about with teasing. Because think about this. You can't use those teasing comebacks with cyberbullying. They're just words on a screen. If Mike's, sorry not to pick on you, Mike, but if Mike's like cyberbullying me over social media and I start to engage with him, even by saying whatever, and your point is, it's still a reaction. It's fun for him. That's what he wants. He wants a reaction out of me. And they're just words on a screen. They don't have any emotion in them. And so those verbal comebacks don't work for cyberbullying. You want to ignore sort of what's going on. You're not going to react. Don't feed the trolls. The saying, by the way, so I can explain this for anyone who's not familiar. What are trolls? You guys know what internet trolls are?
They're the people that just like to leave those negative comments there and be toxic because that's who they are.
Because it's fun for them. It's fun for them. They like the reaction. And so the saying, again, for a couple of decades now online is don't feed the trolls. When you react, you're actually feeding that troll. You're making them stronger. Now, what's interesting is we've actually, in our research, monitored cyberbullying websites and social media to see what works and doesn't. Definitely sticking up for yourself doesn't work. However, other people sticking up for you actually is effective. So having like a same-aged peer or even a sibling, a cousin stick up for you they don't want to take on a group of people, right? Again, they want like the easy target, the one person, but not having your mom or dad or someone get involved. That's actually not the same thing. The other thing too is that we can get help from school, and you have to think about who you'd report it to. It's most often school administration. They can get involved, but we want to make sure that that's the right strategy. That's not going to create more problems for our kids.
And I think before we move past this, and I do want to revisit school avoidance again and some of the other contributing factors, but now we've been talking about a lot of things that can be preventative. Let's go back to your child is bullied, right? There are some real emotional tolls. And I would love to give our families some tools or some next steps, what to do, help them understand what to do when their child is suffering now from this emotional toll that they had, this experience, this trauma at school.
Well, what do we say? We always start from a place of empathy. You've got to empathize with your child. You're going to want to fix it. That's what you're really going to want to do. You're going to want to get right in there for a lot of parents and try to fix it. But what your kid really needs is to feel seen, to feel heard. And we do that by empathizing. We do that for everyone, whether it's your child, your partner, whoever, your coworker. People want to be seen. So repeating back what you're hearing. It sounds like this. Oh, I bet that felt this way. And from there, asking questions, exploring, collaborating. Think of it as a collaboration. You are going to determine together what is the best course of action to change this situation. And that's going to be far more empowering to that child if they feel like they're part of the solution rather than just mom or dad went and fixed it or not, right? But they get to be a part of that. That's going to be much more powerful for that child.
And the red flags, Dr. Laugeson, to know, hey, it's too risky to stay at this school. Or I need to now think about other resources, therapy, psychologists. What are the red flags to look for?
I work with a lot of parents who maybe their kid is kind of struggling with a negative reputation with their peers. Maybe they're doing things that their peers don't like, and for whatever, nice kid, but just doing something that maybe other kids don't like. And the parents always want to have their child change schools. There's bullying issues and things like that. That's always an option. But the thing is if there's something else at the root cause of that rejection, because that is what that is, bullying and teasing, these are forms of rejection. And it's no one's fault per se. But if there's something that kid is doing in that relationship, that bullying dynamic, that's making it fun for that other person, or they're antagonizing them in some other ways, that behavior is probably going to be transferred over to the next school. It's probably not going to go away. It's just going to be repeated. And imagine what that would feel like for that child to go into a whole new environment and have the same thing happening again. So we need to figure out, what is the cycle here? What are we dealing with? Whether we stay in this school or not, let's really figure out what is going on with this. Is it a bullying dynamic? Is it a reputation? And let's try to fix that either within the current school or in the new environment.
All right. I feel like you're leaving us on a cliffhanger here, Doc. We gotta cure mean girl disease, right?
Oh my goodness, yeah. This is one of my favorite strategies, honestly. Here's the thing about
What's the cure?
I've got so much to tell you about this.
Yeah.
Okay, so a lot of people don't realize that rumors and gossip is bullying, right? They just it's the mean girls kind of bullying. That's the relational, social bullying. And boys and guys, they can do it too. It happens to be a little bit more common among females. So here's the interesting thing about rumors and gossip. When it comes to rumors and gossip, every instinct we have is wrong.
What?
Every instinct we have is wrong. Yes, let's walk through this. I'm going to walk through this with you. Okay. So imagine that Mike...
I am not a bully. Just as a disclaimer to the people watching and listening, Mike Wang is not a bully. But let's go with it. I'll go with it.
I know you can handle it. You can take it. That's why. Okay. So imagine that Mike is spreading a rumor about me. Now remember, all of my instincts are wrong here. First of all, let's just think about whether Mike's the one or not. How do I feel when I'm the target of some kind of rumor or gossip?
Oh gosh, horrible.
Well, you feel out of control,
embarrassed.
right?
Yeah.
There's a lot of shame involved with that.
Yeah, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed. I'm upset.
I would be angry, yeah.
I'd be angry. Okay, I can't show any of that. Because imagine that I'm in school and I'm upset and people can see I'm upset. That's good gossip. Who's not talking about how Liz is all upset about this rumor? And also, even worse, when you look upset, you look defensive and you look guilty. Think about that. When you're upset and you try to deny, disprove, and all these things, you look guilty when you're upset. That's another part of it too. Another instinct that people have is they want to disprove the gossip. Like, let's say the rumor isn't true. I want to go tell everybody it's not true. That is going to be one of my strongest instincts. But every instinct we have is wrong when it comes to rumors and gossip. Because imagine that I go to you and I say, hey, did you hear this rumor about me? Well, it's not true. It never really happened. Like, really, this is what I could have a mountain of evidence that this rumor is not true. But I look defensive when I come to you with my mountain of evidence. And the second you look defensive, you look guilty. So I can't show that I'm upset. I can't disprove. I can't deny. It makes me so mad.
Don't want to create a burn book.
No, we don't want to.
We don't agree.
Well, we don't agree with the burn book.
No, we don't agree.
Just holding that in. No, it's not good.
Yeah.
So those are all bad. Now, here's the other thing. Let's say I know that Mike's the one spreading the rumor. What do I want to do?
Confront Mike.
I want to confront Mike. But every instinct I have is wrong. Right? If I go up to Mike and I say, Mike, I know you're spreading this rumor about me. Seriously, you need to stop. That's not cool. What do you think Mike's going to say? Is he going to say, oh, yeah, Liz, you're right. I shouldn't have spread that rumor.
No.
Don't worry. I'll go tell everybody it didn't happen. It's okay. I got your back. Mike, would that ever happen?
I don't think so.
No, I don't think so either. That's not how it works. So instead, I've made it worse for myself, not better, because now it's like World War III, right? Like me and Mike, we're going at it. Everybody's talking about it. I've actually added fuel to the rumor mill. In every single situation here, people are talking about this more. And Mike might even feel justified now and want to even spread more rumors. These are all very bad ideas, even though they're our instincts. So instead, we look at the research. What works, right? What do people do to kind of like kill the rumor? Because the deal is that no matter what you do, you could have the mountain of evidence. Whenever a rumor's out there, you can never totally convince everybody that it's not true. I mean, it's even like celebrities who go sue the tabloids, right?
Mm-hmm.
You've seen that before, right? Like the celebrity that sues the tabloid over some rumor you never heard about in the first place, right? So now they're adding fuel to that rumor, and you're never going to, even if they won the case, there's going to be people who believe it. So when we look at the research to see what does work, what we've found is that you really need to kind of act like the rumor doesn't bother you. And it's actually, you're kind of act amazed anyone will believe it or care about it. Because when you're the target of a rumor, everybody's coming up to you and they're asking you about it. And your instinct is going to want to be to deny it. But instead, what you do is you act amazed anyone will believe it. So that would be things like, oh my God, people are saying that. People are so gullible. People will believe anything, right? Do I sound defensive?
No.
Do I sound guilty? No. Or even if it is true, you act amazed anyone would care about it. Oh my God, people are talking about that. Seriously, people need to get a life. Right? Find a hobby. Do I seem upset? Do I seem defensive? No. And I'm making it not fun to talk about it because you seem kind of stupid for talking about it. Because why would you believe it? Or why would you care? And so that's a great strategy. But here's the problem with that one. Not everybody's going to come up to you and ask you about that rumor or gossip. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to be even more proactive. I'm going to go and do this crazy thing I call spread the rumor about yourself. Now that sounds nuts. Like who would do that, right? Spread the rumor about yourself. No, I'm going to now take control of this rumor. And I'm going to go up to my good friend and I'm going to say, hey, did you hear this rumor that I have a crush on so-and-so, right? And it doesn't matter if my friends heard this rumor or not. I'm going to immediately go into acting amazed. Anyone would believe it or care about it, right? And my friend's got my back. Even when she doesn't know the story, she's going to be like, yeah, who would believe that? And it's a short conversation. And I should mention, I'm going to do this in front of people, right? I need an audience and I need a good friend, right? And I'm going to try to kill that rumor by taking control over it. So these are strategies that you can teach anyone, whether they're neurodivergent or not. Every kid could benefit from learning these strategies. And we can avoid these negative outcomes like school avoidance and all the anxiety and the depression that comes from those really complicated social situations that happen when you're a kid.
And I think, again, going back, and thank you for being so comprehensive about talking about the strategies that we can use for these different types of bullying. But if we were to separate it out with school avoidance, if there are root causes from social anxiety, from performance anxiety, can you take those things apart for us?
Yeah, those are different. And I'm so glad you're coming back to this because not every kid who's refusing to go to school is being bullied. We know that there's a high prevalence, but not every kid. Could be something different. So other causes are things like anxiety and depression. And anxiety is complicated because there's different types of anxiety, right? It could be separation anxiety. That's a lot more common with younger children, where school is kind of new for them and they don't want to be away from their parents. They don't feel so safe. Separation anxiety is definitely an issue, and we would manage that differently. I'll talk about that in a moment. There's also social anxiety, just being around other people. Well, in that case, using strategies like our peers program, where you're teaching kids how to navigate the social world, when people feel more socially competent, they become more socially confident and less socially anxious. So giving them those real tools for how to navigate social situations is going to decrease that social anxiety. There's also something called performance anxiety. And that's something like being afraid of being called on by the teacher. That's a real fear for a lot of people. And so if that's the case, having accommodations where maybe we agree that the teacher's not going to call on you in front of the whole class. You can answer questions in written form or after class. But for other things like depression and some of those more generalized anxiety, cognitive behavioral therapy is sort of the go-to when it comes to school refusal. If you were to look up and research and figure out what's the kind of go-to intervention, it's cognitive behavioral therapy. And what that means is that we're sort of identifying and sort of restructuring thoughts and behaviors to be more emotionally healthy and increase your well-being. Just by changing thoughts and behaviors, you can actually change emotions and feelings. And so the way that would work in school refusal or school avoidance is something called scaffolding. And so scaffolding is not taking on a huge problem all at once, but really breaking it down into smaller steps. So you have a child that's refusing to go to school. What do? Well, you maybe work out a way to identify small steps to get to where you want to go. Maybe initially they have a shortened school day for a little while. Maybe they get to take more frequent breaks at school. Maybe they have a deal that they can go check in with a supportive adult throughout the school day if they're starting to feel anxious. There's different ways of doing this. Every family will be different. But there are wonderful solutions to these problems. But before we ever get to a solution, we have to figure out what the problem is.
Yeah. Now, let me go. The core question really is, what is the distinction between school avoidance and learning avoidance? Because now we're starting to, again, things are layered. And I think that's an important distinction to make.
Yeah, they don't tend to be the same thing. Yeah, learning avoidance would be kids who don't want to learn. And there's often that's associated with a lot of learning disabilities, kids that maybe have dyslexia and things that makes them feel like learning is a challenge. School avoidance or school refusal could include this, of course, where they're trying to actively avoid learning, but it's rarely the case. It's often something that's different, something that's most of those kids actually want to learn. They want to succeed. They're just fearful of some other thing. And it's typically external, even though you're feeling it internally. It could be a fear of that, performing in front of the class. It could be a fear of interacting with their classmates or being bullied. But those don't tend to be the same thing, although there can be overlap.
When we think about school avoidant behaviors, we've already talked a little bit about the one-offs, the big impact moments, the bullying that is overt and the kid's going to shut down, and the next day they're saying, I have a tummy ache or whatever, and I don't want to go. Are there any earlier signs of school avoidance when it comes to things like anxiety and depression?
Yeah, parents know their kids, right, when they start to behave differently. It often starts with things like refusing to do homework assignments or pretending they don't have homework assignments when they actually do, and discovering later that they just haven't been doing it. We get a lot of I don't cares, a lot of that. Irritability that just kind of comes out of nowhere, in the home. Angry outbursts, tantrums that are just out of the blue. They haven't never done this before. And a lot of physical complaints. Yeah, especially in those school mornings. A lot of tummy aches, a lot of headaches. They're not happening at other times of the week, but they're happening right before school. Those are red flags that maybe something's going on.
Signs of emotional shutdown.
Yeah.
Or those somatic signs of anxiety.
Definitely.
Right? Okay.
How do we help disengaged students reconnect with learning in a way that feels safe?
Well, it's going to be different for every child, right? Because we have to figure out, well, what is the safety concern? To get kids re-engaged or even engaged, we have to figure out what is it that's preventing them from doing that. So it all goes back to start with empathy, some observations, start a conversation. And I would really like parents to have the mantra of, it's not about the correction as much as it is the connection. Because the correction, yes, that's your end goal. You want to correct this behavior, but you're not going to get there without connecting with your child first and figuring out what's going on and connecting the dots to figure out why they're at where they are. And so take a beat, take a deep breath and really connect with your kid and figure out what's going on. Don't go straight to solving the problem, forcing them to. If you force them to go to school when they're trying to refuse to go, you actually might be, as we said, exacerbating the problem. You might be making it worse, not better.
So you talked a little bit about the scaffolding, and in my layman's term, it's setting up opportunities for a kid to dip their toes back into school, right? Mm-hmm. And I know, coming from being a principal at a traditional school, that's not always possible, and schools might not necessarily be able to work with you on that because, it's the end of a marking period, or we got final exams, and how are we supposed to catch your kid up when they've been out for 3 weeks? Some of those things. Any advice out there?
I mean, thank you for, the 504 plans and the IEPs and the, thinking about, accommodations that are part of a school environment. I would talk with the school counselors and see what the options are. And if your school is unwilling to accommodate your child's needs, then I think it's fair to explore if that's the right school environment for you and your child.
Dr. Laugeson, now it's time to separate fact from fiction. It's time for some myth busting.
I'm ready. I better not be resting. I'm ready. Let's go.
All right, myth number 1. Students who refuse to go to school, they're just being lazy or making excuses.
Oh, no, that's a myth. Yeah, I mean, it's very, very rare that you find like a lazy kid who's just refusing to go to school. It's more often that it's masking something much deeper. Some type of fear or anxiety, something that could be overwhelming to them in some way. So very rarely is this laziness.
Myth number 2, students that are avoiding school because of bullying, they just need to grow tougher skins.
Oh, no. I mean, honestly, one of the strongest predictors of mental health problems like anxiety and depression is peer rejection and bullying. So no, absolutely not. That's a huge myth.
Myth number 3, depression, it always looks like sadness.
No, actually, another myth. Depression looks very different in different people. It could be angry outbursts. It could be the internalizing is what everyone thinks of, right? Like going to yourself and becoming more introverted, but it could also be tantrums and irritability. It could be, angry outbursts and aggression. So yeah, big, big myth.
Myth number 4, the best strategy for parents to get their kids to go to school when they're feeling school avoidant, let's just rip the bed sheets off the bed and get them in the car.
So forcing them to do it. No, myth. Honestly, you could create more damage in many ways doing that because there's something at the root of that. That's a symptom, right? That's not the actual problem. The problem is hidden right now. So the symptom is refusing to go to school. If you force them to do something that's incredibly fearful for them, you actually could be doing more harm than good and exacerbating the problem. Yeah, myth.
Dr. Laugeson, what a pleasure to get to talk to you. I mean, such practical tools that we as parents and educators can use, and really being able to build that understanding of what are the root causes of why we might be seeing school avoidance, whether it be anxiety, depression, or bullying, unfortunately. And I just want to thank you again for being here.
Well, thank you for having me. And thanks for the important work you're doing as well.
Every student learns differently, but when you truly understand how they learn, everything changes. That's why Fusion Academy created a short quiz to help you better understand your students' learning DNA. In just a few minutes, you'll get personalized insights into your students' unique learning preferences, plus tips to better support them at home and in the classroom. Take the quiz today. It's quick, it's free, and it may just unlock your students' full potential. Visit fusionacademy.com/podcast. That's fusionacademy.com/podcast.
We know learning differently requires showing up differently. So here are some tools, insights, and strategies to help. It's time for real talk, real tools. For students struggling with school avoidance, the goal isn't to push them back into school overnight. It's to rebuild connection and trust, one moment at a time. Start by softening the conversation. Replace "why won't you go to school" with "what are you feeling?" In their book, The Disengaged Team, Rebecca Winthrop and Jenny Anderson remind us that the opposite of disengagement isn't compliance, it's actually connection. And that starts at home. Try this. A low-stakes connection routine. Choose a simple ritual, a daily walk, a shared playlist, or a card game. No school talk, just presence. Over time, those moments become the bridge back to learning. Here's a morning rhythm without pressure. Create a gentle start to the day, even if school's not on the agenda. Try soft music, breakfast together, and light movement. The structure soothes without forcing. You can also name and normalize emotions. Daily mood check-ins to help your child find language for what they're carrying. You can say something like, "I'm sensing some heaviness today. Does it feel more like stress, sadness, or something else?" Progress won't be immediate, but it begins at home with presence over pressure.
Lynna, I'm thinking about those strategies that you're offering, and I'm wondering if there's parents out there that are hearing, "Oh my gosh, those routines sound great, but my kid's a teenager. It's too late." But I loved what Dr. Laugeson was saying. Well, the best time to start is now, right? Let's establish those routines. Let's build in the time to connect with our kids, to really hear them out, and to build that trust and empathy with our children.
Yeah, start somewhere. It doesn't have to be perfect. It can, again, just be progress, but start somewhere.
Start somewhere. I mean, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The next best time, today.
This past winter break, we were sitting on the couch, and Bradley knew that his grades would be coming soon, and he knew that they were not going to be good. He had been working so hard, and he knew that they were going to be C's and D's. And he just broke and said, "I'm ready to try Fusion." My heart broke knowing that he had reached that point, but we were thrilled to know that he was ready for something new and something different. I felt really hopeful for him in that moment that things were going to turn around. Bradley actually got some one-on-one attention at a former school, but it felt punitive. It felt like they were there to keep tabs on him and not to help him thrive in his school environment. Versus the one-on-one experience at Fusion, where they love him. And that's what every parent wants. Bradley has teachers who get to know him and learn who he is and why doesn't he want to do this? What's the why? It's not school avoidance, it's frustration, or it's needing positive reinforcement. At Fusion, Bradley's treated like an actual human being, with the knowledge that he might not be at his best every day, and that's okay. One-to-one education makes all the difference. Fusion also gave us time to be a family, to enjoy our time together and not feel stressed about homework, and just have fun.
And now my favorite part of the show, where the numbers, the neuroscience, and the public policy intersect. It's time for the Research Roundup. The big one I want to point out today is the research from Dr. Golda Ginsburg and her team that showed school refusal is most commonly linked to anxiety, depression, trauma, and bullying. It's just another reminder of the issue here. The school refusal is not the issue. The issue is what's causing the school refusal, and that's what we need to be focused on trying to support.
And those root causes, Mike, anxiety, trauma, those are not fixed with attendance policies.
No, I don't think so. Again, like the school refusal itself, that's the symptom of the antecedents. Well, I think it prompts us to really be investigators here, right? Both as parents and educators. Really understanding the issue here isn't kids not coming to school, right? Like, we really need to put on our detective hats, play investigator, both as parents and as educators, and figuring out why. What caused this? Is it mental health? Is it something going on at school? Is it social interactions that are going on via text chains or social media? Those are the things that we really need to be focusing on.
I agree, Mike. And this is why it's so important to have a partnership between the school and home. Shared language, shared strategy. That's really what's going to help.
And if a parent goes to the school and they're not being super supportive, then maybe with the consult of a professional, maybe it's time to explore other options out there.
Thanks so much for joining us on Learning Differently. We're grateful that you're here, doing the work, asking the questions, and showing up for the students who need it most. Supporting learners who think and experience the world differently takes curiosity, care, and corazón, heart. Because when we understand how they learn,
we unlock who they can become.
We'll see you next time.